Good again. All right, there we go. Maybe he can't do it tonight.
Right? I don't know. Yeah.
I should probably check in with him. I should have checked in with him earlier today just to like reconfirm. I've just been working all day, so it's kind of
Right?
it's my 8 hour day today.
Ugh.
So do you see him on Skype, Sasha?
It shows me he's online on Skype.
Okay. Well, I wonder if it's like, maybe he just thinks, maybe he thought we're a little earlier than tonight for, maybe, I don't know, maybe he went to the bathroom really quick or something.
About 5 minutes.
Yeah, he'll be on like soon, hopefully.
Yeah, he likes to wait right till like 12 o'clock to show up.
I know, huh?
Yeah.
I think I've had like 4.5 hours sleep today.
Yeah, I was pretty much me yesterday. I slept most of the day. I needed it.
Um, well, I'm not going to talk about it yet because I'm kind of curious about what happened with your cell phone.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Patrick, I was able to download one of your videos and make an MP3 file out of it on the Hypnovations. Uh,
Sure.
yeah, so we'll play that, during the first hour that you're on. It's the second one that for some reason it wouldn't allow me to do the first one. I don't know why. I was getting resistance, but we'll definitely be able to play that. And also the Jack Hare Initiative. It's the Jack. Is it the Jack Hare Hemp and Health Initiative, or how is it the full title for it?
It is actually called the California Cannabis Hemp Initiative.
Okay.
California Cannabis Hemp Initiative. That's our group. That's the initiative process. When it passes, it'll be called the California Hemp Act.
Okay.
So it'll stand as a law as the California Hemp Act. But what we're in the process we're in right now is called the California Cannabis Hemp Initiative because we're just trying to get it on the ballot.
All right. Hope I remember that. California Cannabis Hemp.
2014. Yeah, I'll fill in any of the blanks around the initiative. You don't have to worry too much about that. Just ask questions.
Okay. All right. All right. I go. Hey, you're working on an initiative in California. If I can't remember the name, I'll just say that.
Perfect. I'll fill it over. Earlier this season, I was correcting somebody online about it not being called the California Impact, and Mikey had to chime in and be like, "Hey, actually, that is what it's called." Once it passes.
I think we're getting Northblatt here. Hopefully he answers. Come on. Sasha's is Easy online now?
It's showing his Skype still offline. I was trying his cell phone again.
Oh, okay.
You have reached the.
Yeah. Bummer. So did you go to the Hawaiian place today? I mean the kiosk?
I did.
Uh-huh.
I did. It was cool. The little the vaporizers they got and stuff was cool.
Wow, cool.
I was even a bit. And then it was weird. We were just in there, right? And out of nowhere, like a group of like 30, 40 of like the most
ever seen, right? Like it looked like some scenes straight out of a movie.
Uh-huh.
We're just like kind of looking at them, and they look at us and they hand us a flyer. They were like in there to promote like a rap show, and like he said, I promise you'll have a good time. And Steven's like, can you promise me we won't get mugged? And they all were laughing, and then we started talking, and then they're like, you know what? Can we get a picture with you? Like I wasn't even talking to them. They wanted pictures with me. They didn't even know who I was or anything, but for some reason they just wanted to take pictures with me. Even Steven was kind of weirded out by it, so I was like, all right, so here I am just posing with all these like gangsters doing all these things. I have no idea who they are or why. They just like came up on us. It was weird.
I saw you post something about that on Facebook today.
Yeah, like we got mobbed by 30 black guys. They wanted to take pictures with me.
Alright, we're starting.
Are we starting?
As soon as it goes live.
Okay.
You'll hear it. Alright, here we go.
Okay.
Imagine a town where there are no small joints, just small stones, where Kush is a girl's best friend, and law breaking is the new liberty. It's the Hollywood Hemptress Hour, hosted by your honey blonde Hemptress, Terry Joyce.
And welcome to Hollywood Hemptress Hour on Time for Hemp at iHeartRadio. I am Terry Joyce, your host. It is just exactly 12:01 according to my computer, but you know, it could be slightly off. With me, I have Kevin Korn from Hardcorn Entertainment, also a producer and cast member of Trips, co-hosting with me tonight. Welcome, Kevin.
Yes, good to be here as usual.
Yeah, we had a great show last night.
Fun.
Yeah, and for those of who may have missed it, we have it in our Trips group section, but we did an after hours, and the guys from .com Radio, Stephen Barry and Travis McDonald, were just smoking out with their Hawaiian vape pens.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, we could actually really see them. I wanted to join them. I wish I could just go through the computer and sit and like take a puff with them.
Right, you know that during the commercial breaks and stuff,
Hmm.
they were actually taking turns recording a song in there.
Really?
Yeah, and I actually heard it because he showed it to me because he's like, yeah, we recorded this last night while we were doing your show with you guys. And they're like, we don't think that had ever been done, like somebody recording like something in a studio while they're actually like doing a live performance. So that's how they did it. It was actually a pretty good song.
Oh wow! I'd love to hear it. It would be fun if they let us play it on the show.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then we can just kind of announce it as like this was actually being recorded while they were on our show during the commercial break.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that was really fun. I mean they just really played music right on the spot and made up lyrics and it was a super fun night last night. You know, I really enjoyed it. And then the afters. Now we did our trips and then we did a little I don't know what we called it. We called it something kind of nasty. Something to because they were describing us how to use the vapor pen, and the way they described it was incredibly sexual.
Just the tip.
Yeah, you just put the tip in and you lubricate it around the side, and don't go too far in. And I was like, wow, I was kind of turned on. I'm thinking, is that their spiel that they do at the mall? No wonder why they sell so many pens.
Yeah, right?
Right. So we kind of just made sort of a phrase out of their selling technique, and Facebook actually we got like they wouldn't let us repost after a while because we got a
Yeah, somebody was offended.
somebody was offended about.
All it said was just the tip, and somebody got offended.
I know. God, I've said way worse than that, and and like please, but then we.
They're probably really anal anyways because if that offends them, they probably need more than just the tip. If they were getting a little tip, they wouldn't be complaining.
Right. But and you went to their kiosk today in Vancouver.
Yes, I did. And which is a really weird. That mall, it was really weirded out. One, it was full, like not by people, but like the stores. Like, most malls, like half of the stores are closed down. Like Town Center here, even. And it was full, and they had kiosks everywhere. And one of the kiosks on the bottom floor literally sold bombs in the middle of the mall.
Really?
Yes, they sold glass pipes, bombs, you name it. It was just like it was new experience.
That's like a sign of the times, really.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because this is Washington, so that I guess in Washington you're going to see people sell bongs at a kiosk. Now, probably you're not going to see that in Iowa.
Exactly. Oh, I mean, I haven't been to too many Westfield malls anywhere in the country where I've seen people openly selling bombs in the middle of the store.
I've never seen it, so I'm going to have to just.
First for me.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go down and like take pictures of that and kind of document it.
Yeah, it was called, their kiosk was Aladdin's Glass.
Really?
That's what it was called. Yes, Aladdin's Glass, and I was just like, what?
So now, can you? I mean, I know that technically in some places you're not supposed to call them bongs.
Right.
You're supposed to call them water pipes. Were they able? Did you talk to them, or did they call them bongs, or did they call them water pipes?
No, they call them bombs. And get this, and even though they can't legally sell pot yet, right?
Uh-huh.
You could take your bongs into them and they'll clean them, even if they're dirty, like, or whatever. And it used to be you couldn't even say bong, couldn't bring a dirty piece in, you couldn't do anything like that.
Uh-huh.
Now they're like, no, it's a bong. I mean, you can use the terminology, It's like legal, but it's kind of not legal. It's kind of
Why are there people bringing dirty pieces in?
to get clean. They clean them.
Did they have a special cleaning solvent or anything, something like that?
Well, if you have if you use like a lot of glassware, like me, and I have bongs,
Uh-huh.
they get dirty. Like they get
Yeah.
resin in there, and then and depending, and then depending if you're not like cleaning the water constantly, it'll actually grow moldy and bacteria. So you take them and they'll actually clean that, flush that out for you. Personally, I wouldn't just take it in there to do it. I do it myself, but some people just, I guess, like the comfort of having other people do it. Or if you break a piece,
Uh-huh.
and your bongs dirty, you can take it in, they'll clean it, and then fix it.
Okay.
They'll blow it and fix it. So it's just weird that you can do that.
Wow. How do you clean your bong? I mean, like, what do you do to clean your bong?
Me?
Yeah.
I use water and rock salt.
Uh-huh.
And chunks of rock salt, and I put it in there, and I just shake it. Just keep shaking it, and the salt and the water acts like sandpaper and actually cleans everything off the glass.
We have our guest on hold. I want to ask him how he cleans his bong too. I'm curious how people clean their bongs. If they're different or I don't really have a bong. My brother gave me a bong one time when he moved out of our apartment, because I used to be his roommate. But since, and it was kind of, I don't know what happened to it. I lost it somewhere or whatever. I wasn't, at the time that he gave it to me, I wasn't really into smoking weed all that much, believe it or not. But I do want to bring our guest in here. I have Patrick Moore here, and he is I'm a fan of his. He's quite the activist, and he's been a big activist for legalization of marijuana and hemp, and he's working on the California, the Cannabis California Hemp Initiative that is now going on. It's geared to be happening in 2014. And also he was an occupier in Los Angeles, and he has a voice in the freedom movement. And so I want to welcome to the show Patrick Moore. Welcome. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a very nice introduction.
Oh, thank you. I remember the first time I met you. We were actually at it wasn't the Comedy Store, but Jeffrey Peterson was doing a comedy show, one of the dopest show on earth, and we were kind of backstage in this little backstage area, and where everybody could medicate and smoke, and then there was like a section off area, and you were back there, and I think that's the first time I met you. You had a certain type
I
of.
remember that night, yes.
You do? Yeah. You had a necklace around your neck, and I asked him what it was, and you said the symbol was it was symbolized the Merkaba or the Merkaba.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm all esoteric.
Yeah.
Studying for a long time, been on this path for a long time.
Yeah. So, and here we are now, quite a few years later, and a lot of stuff happened since then. I mean, that was pre-revolution is what I is what I is how I guess I'm equating it. Um, so Patrick, how do you clean your bong?
I often, well, as of lately, I've been using Green Glass Clean. There's a company that makes a cleaning product. I believe it's mostly alcohol and a little bit of citrus, and then I add some rock salt to it.
Uh-huh.
I find that you shake that up in a sealed bag, and then run some hot water through it a little bit later, boom, done. Clean, crisp. And it's like starting all over again.
Nice.
That sounds about right.
Now, do you smoke? I mean, I can't wait to have Craig X Rubin on the show. Craig X lights his bong with that beeswax string because he doesn't want to have the combustion, as part of his smoke. Do you do anything like that, or does that matter to you?
I do as often as I can. I get a little sloppy sometimes, especially with bongs. I find that if you smoke if you light the bong with the hemp beeswax, you don't end up with the butane that actually builds up in the water. So in bongs in particular, you end up with that weird taste in a bong. It's often just from the residue of the butane coming through the big lighters. So yeah, Craig taught me that, and I found it to be true, and I stick to it as much as I can.
Well, I mean, he actually he gave me some, like I think I don't even think I've used it all. I really need to, be a little bit easier on my lungs, I suppose. I find it fascinating how everybody has their own. It's almost like smoking is it's like ritualistic, with your bong and your pipe, and people clean it a certain way, and they wrap it up in a cloth, and they put it in a special corner, and it stays, good lighting, or I don't know. I mean, I'm fascinated. Other like drugs, that people may take. I don't think there's so much care and keeping everything so pristine, and I don't know. I do you guys agree with that, or have you observed that in yourself and other people?
I do with my glass. I mean, I have a glass collection, and I try to keep them, pristine, clean. I'll use them, and then, and I might not, after I use them, especially after I get stoned, I might not get up and do it right there, but definitely, like, before I go back, like, the next day, if I'm like, oh, and I want to smoke out of my bubbler, and I know I used it the night before, it's definitely getting clean before it gets loaded.
Uh-huh. Well, I like to smoke from a clean pipe. And would you say, Patrick?
I think about the anthropologists. They refer to the religions of the Americas 500 years ago and earlier as the pipe. So from Peru to Alaska, the general theme of the religion of the Americas was that they all used the pipe as the centerpiece, mouthpiece as the key to their ritual. So yeah, I think we are in truth that they're just carrying on the ancient tradition of the Americas.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think the ancestors on this land recognize art and feel for us. And I think there's been a symbiosis of energy, whether we can recognize it or name it or put our finger on it, that continues on to this day. It's much older, much bigger than we've given it credit for.
Yeah, there's definitely so much connected to the cannabis plant, and how we've used it historically. And it sounds like you're almost, I mean, to me, I feel like you're implying that it's kind of in our DNA and we don't know it, but we're just kind of doing something that was like maybe like actually instinctive to us. Is that kind of like what you feel?
Carl Sagan said it was most likely the very first thing we started growing, the thing that took us from being wanderers and nomads. As we did these loops around, we found that when we stopped somewhere and we broke apart the hemp plant, nomadic wandering and into forming farms and places was our connection to the hemp plant. So yeah, I think intrinsically it is the thing that has kept us together and kept us on this planet alive, healthy, and strong for 20,000 years. So yeah, and as now they've identified the endocannabinoid system in the body being one of the most important physical systems in our body. Now we have scientific proof that cannabis is intrinsically part of humanity and vice versa. And but yeah, symbolically I see it all the time as well.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you for sharing that with us. We have a couple minutes before we take the commercial break, but I'm gonna turn the tables just a little bit to Kevin, only because I'm concerned. All of us here on the show have been somewhat vocal. Either we've done protests or marched, or we're on this show talking right now, or we post things on Facebook. Because we believe in what we see, and I think most of us here want to see us evolve and have a positive change in the world, and we see some things that we feel are kind of a violation to specifically what we thought being an American was, and the freedom that we believe that our laws are upholding. And that also has to do with our wanting to legalize the cannabis plant as well, because obviously the opposition to it sometimes is quite aggressive in stopping it from us, the people implementing what they're wanting to vote on, and everything. So, and I'm going to just ask the question. I'm probably going to have to come back after the commercial break to finish the entire part of this. But Kevin actually went to the Million Mask March, the anonymous march that happened here in Portland, and on that I'm going to come back with a commercial break and finish the rest of this and ask questions and find out what Kevin's story is. We'll be right back. What?
Oh, my cord to the laptop just unplugged itself here.
There we go.
All better.
So.
And then I took that bong rip. Now I'm high.
Then I go on.
Yeah.
So Patrick, how are things doing down in Los Angeles?
Things are ever interesting and evolving. The really was buried in this campaign for the last 6 weeks, but and we're getting a lot of momentum. I'm really impressed and inspired, and I think we got a really good shot at it. I was also down at the Million Mask March with Richard Smith, and he did a retake of what they did 2 years ago with the big giveaway.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 2 years ago we gave away 2 pounds of ganja on the 15th anniversary of medical marijuana. And then he showed up last year, no one else showed up. But this year, the Million Mask March showed up as we were setting up the tables and doing our remembrance of the anniversary of 215, and he gave out cannabis to every person there.
I'd love to talk about that after at the show, because that'll lead into what we're talking about here.
Much better occupied than I got.
Yeah, I gotta thank Richard. He's been thrilled.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I guess that's one of the benefits of being in California. Yeah.
Right? Yes, to California, I remember, the first time I was in really in California by myself, sitting at a stoplight on the highway, and this car rolls up next to me, and they're smoking a blunt, and they see me looking at them, and they just hand it through the car window to me. I reach through the car, I reach out, I take it, I pull it in, I take a couple puffs off it, I put it back through the window, they take it back, they look at me and they nod, the light goes green and they drive off. And I was like, fucking California.
California.
Yeah, right? That was like, I like this place. That doesn't happen at home.
Yeah. I want to go. I'm itching to go back and visit. Pretty soon.
Yeah, I miss you.
I miss you too. Yeah, I miss being there. I mean, it's not that I'm not happy where I'm at right now because I'm into being here right now. But I do miss it, and so my goal has been to be able to be where once I get things the way, once we get like part of my dream is about to come true. Um, but once I'm able to do it, I want to be able to be like I could be down there for 3 months and then, come back up here and, kind of be able to, keep this residence and then move around to different places. It's kind of, but so yeah, I'm kind of itching to I be there. I miss certain places and I miss people, friends. Um, yeah.
Thanks a lot down there.
Huh?
What was that?
Oh, there's just a unique pace of life here in California. It's a unique.
It is.
It's much like Austin was in the South. California is kind of for the whole country. It's where the progressive people go. If you got a mohawk or you got dreadlocks or you got your nose pierced, you're likely going to end up somewhere like California or down south. Those little pockets like Austin, Texas, or a few other places. But yeah, we birds of a feather. We kind of flock together. And California's been cool up.
And we're back on Hollywood Hemptress Hour, yeah, on time for Hemp Radio, and on iHeartRadio. So with me is co-hosting with me tonight is Kevin Korn from Hardcorn Entertainment, and also from the new web series Trips. And so and my guest, Patrick Moore, who is a cannabis hemp activist and also a show host. So he's done a couple shows, and we're going to play a little MP3 of one of his new shows. Now, I was talking about the Million Mass March in Portland, and Kevin went to it and shot a video, and we uploaded it to Facebook, and we Facebooked it everywhere, and put it on YouTube, and a lot of people saw it right away, and then we've been pretty vocal in the Trips forum, and you actually did something that you feel you've been either surveilled, or that you've had your phone shut off, and tell us what happened, Kevin. What did happen?
Well, I guess, like going to that and after making that video, I got a lot of friend requests like pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't care, so I just accept them. And a couple of those guys I actually started talking to, one of them sent me some information that was, pretty much predated. Like it's something that's going to take place in the next few weeks. And so I had read it, and I thought better about it, of even using it or putting it out there. However, I had called somebody to talk to them about it, another friend, and mid-conversation of like explaining what I was reading to him, my phone shut off, and it was just really weird. So I was like, oh, okay. So I turned my phone back on, and when it comes back on, all of a sudden it just starts telling me like it's roaming, it's no service, I can only use it for emergency calls only. And I'm thinking, okay. So I take out the battery, I put it back in, turn it back on. Same thing. I'm like, whatever. I didn't really think too much of it until this morning when I woke up and I go back to my phone. And now when I go to my phone, my wallpaper has changed to that, and there's absolutely nothing on my phone. All of my data's gone. Any photos, saved messages, contacts, phone numbers, emails, people's name, everything is gone off my phone. Just wiped, completely clean. The network information, off the SIM card, everything. And I went to T-Mobile, and nobody can tell me what's going on.
Now,
My account's paid. I'm on a family plan, and it's already paid. So it's like it's good till like January or something.
Patrick,
The police issued they put out a device in Seattle over the weekend or last week, probably having to do with as I think about it now, the Million Mask March. It's a big device that swipes everybody's phones and smartphones and pulls all the data off. They got caught doing it, and they're doing it without any permission. So they claimed this a few days ago. Oh, we had set this machine up just to test it, and then when we left, we accidentally left it on. We're not actually running the program on the city right now. We just accidentally left this machine on after we tested it for an afternoon. So that's the best story they got to cover up the fact that they're placing these machines around that for, several square miles, or depending on how it's modulated, just wipes everybody. And they say it's a big threat with, the airports and stuff. People have little versions of those machines where they get your data off there for, scamming reasons. But it's nice to know the federal government is doing that on wide scales in the streets.
Yeah, well, it's not just Seattle. I'm in Portland, so I'm not even that far from Seattle, and it's happened to me. And what I find interesting is, like right now, if I turn my phone on, it'll tell me it's Monday, June 29th, and it'll tell me it's like 8 p.m. I clock on it, it's not registering to they kicked me off the satellites, off the networks. I can't even, it won't even register. It's weird.
Yeah, so you used to say back in the day when they tap your phone, half the times you could hear them talking. So
Yeah.
you got a lot of money, you got a war to fight, but you're not the brightest, and you're not really on top of the game very, very often. So it's not at all surprising that if they're trying to strike information, they're going to destroy information and destroy people's phones along the way.
Yeah. So I kind of got angry, so I went ahead and posted all the paperwork I had in downloadable format as a file onto a bunch of groups on Facebook today.
Uh-huh.
By the time I got to the fourth group,
Uh-huh.
bam, Facebook had me blocked. They had blocked my post. It wouldn't let me post it. Every time I tried to post it, it would say, this content is no longer available. But I took a screenshot of it and posted it in Trips.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, it's like, what?
Oh, I didn't see I didn't look at on the image though. I should have clicked on it. Well, I had my smartphone, so I was at work. But I need it.
The image is actually just a picture of my desktop, the screenshot of my desktop of Facebook telling me I can't post this.
Unbelievable. I mean, I just wanted to bring that up because, for one thing, we've been talking about you being there on this show and everything and what our thoughts are. So it's kind of like part of everything that's happening. And, I feel like, and I'm just going to put it out there, we've talked about some of our posts being, deleted or messed with or, on Facebook. And also I was just simply chatting with somebody like I normally do. I was working on booking this show. And with somebody who I talk to frequently on Facebook, and Facebook all of a sudden told me to slow down, that I was going to be, it looked like I was possibly spamming while I was chatting with somebody, and I was like, what? And then I found out that apparently they said that somebody said that I had abused the chat by spamming people, and it's like, I never spam people, ever. And, I'm like, what are they talking about? And so I, of course, counteracted them and said, this is a false report. They said, so somebody reported you. And then I posted what I posted, and, some people and I'm angry and I'm a little scared however, but, a lot of times I post those things because I want people to know that maybe I'm being messed with. I think the best thing that you can do is actually publicly talk about it and say, look, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I think is going on. This is what I think is going on with my friends. And, maybe we're just paranoid pot smokers. You can look at us that way. There are things that happen in Occupy that, I got a little worried about some stuff, and and then I go, well, I feel that maybe they're listening, or they've got our phone things. Well, then it came out, finally, when I could show my mom and go, look, this is the, they have been spying on Occupy people, and they do have their records, and finally, I got, my mom went, wow, okay, she's actually, maybe she isn't so crazy, about what's going on. But anyways, I don't want to keep harping on that, but thanks for sharing that story with us today. But I want to talk to Patrick about the initiative that's happening in California. How is that going? And this is the one that's connected to the one that we tried to pass before, isn't it?
It is the same initiative we've been trying to pass for basically 20 years.
Uh-huh.
Jack Hare wrote this in the early 90s and polished it over the years, but hence it's just gotten better. But it's always been, as far as I'm concerned, the finest piece of cannabis legislation written. I looked at them all. I've read Prop 19. I saw what they passed in Washington and Colorado. I've seen the other, we ran in 2012 against 4 other initiatives. So I've investigated them all, looked at what they're doing internationally. I know what they've done in Germany and other places, and they're all sort of these half steps. They all have built-in felonies. They all have these things where they're a minute amount of this and keep you within this little confine, and if you cross that line, you're right back to being an outlaw and a felon for our new legal cannabis. And I know, especially after the last 80 years of abuse we've been paying, we deserve better. The community, we deserve to have this just freed up, that apologies for the mistakes, correct as much as we can do as far as the damage done, and move forward as true free citizens in this country with no baggage on our back for being cannabis smokers. And Jack Hare's initiative is the only thing I've seen that really offers that potential. So as much as I'm sort of a pariah in the California cannabis community at this point, because so many people are supporting these other initiatives for one reason or another. Often I believe it's because they have vested interests. They see themselves as being the kings of cannabis somewhere down the road, and that they're going to have special status and special marketplace interests if they set themselves up that way. So I know some of the laws are designed that way, promoted for those reasons. Other reasons, it's as diverse as the people out there, but I truly believe that Jack Hare initiative, Jack knew the cannabis community. Jack loved California, and I think that was just a true passion he had. He wrote a piece of legislation that is pretty near perfect, if I don't say so myself. And we'll go through some details on it. It not only legalizes cannabis, it limits the taxes, it limits the regulation, and it frees all the pot prisoners. Which seems always to me the least we could do. If you're going to be legalizing cannabis and then people use it in the future, how can you keep 10,000 people in jail saying, all right, well, as of today it's good to go, but you're still going to serve out your 8 or 10 or 15-year narcotics charges while we all go off and open up cafes and continue on in the future. So that's also the only initiative that frees the pot prisoners, which used to seem fairly radical. Today, we're not getting so much flack about that. Today, that doesn't seem so radical. But even 2 years ago, definitely 6 and 8 years ago, cannabis communities all shake their heads at us. No, we can't do that. It's too much. Can't ask for that. And yet, for me, it's just common sense, just a basic decency.
Well, in Washington, when they legalized pot, they did that. They dropped all pending charges. Anybody that was on probation or still in custody on just marijuana offenses were released, let go, and all charges and fines dropped.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, that actually happened in Washington. The only reason I found that out is because I had a buddy who was going to he was going to court being charged by the state of Washington for growing pot. And when the law passed, he was still going through the court. They just dropped all charges, and then we looked further into it, and they did it for everybody. People were getting dead. I mean, it was like a big celebration there.
Wow.
It's beautiful. But then Washington went and made 0.5 nanograms while you're driving a felony.
Yeah, they did write in some crazy shit in there about the driving.
Yeah. Right. No, again, every one of these initiatives has got 80 or 90% that I agree with. And I'm just like, well, of course, that's great, and maybe the numbers are a little low, or maybe and I'd be flexible with those, as long as there isn't that clear, like, here's how you're going to be a felony. Here's how we're going to keep our jails full after we legalize cannabis. Cannabis smokers. And with Prop 19, it was you're going to be a felon if you smoke in the presence of a child, a minor. So anyone under 18 that was in your presence while you're smoking, you became a felon. And that just happens. That's going to happen. And over the last few years, I've really made a note of every time I've sort of been, there's a park or there's someone over there and there's a kid somewhere, I'm like, oh, this would have been that situation where we'd all be thinking we're legally smoking our weed.
How did they sneak that in? How did they sneak that in? Like, because, I wouldn't vote for that.
Right, no, as a people's initiative, and it came within came within 2 points in 2010 of becoming California state law.
Yeah, I remember that initiative.
Yeah, no, that was the biggest thing California's done so far. So it's getting something on the ballot and actually having people vote against it. And I knew, again, a good chunk of the cannabis community, people who really, had read the initiative, were, and everyone had a hard time campaigning against it. But I know a lot of people just didn't vote for it, couldn't with a clear conscience vote for it. And I'm glad they didn't. Again, I'd rather see it stay where it is and create a type of legalization that makes it worse. So I've sidestepped supporting any other initiative, sort of the Jack Herer initiative, and some things that Ron Paul had a thing where he wanted to deschedule cannabis federally, just drop it off the books, like it didn't exist. Like cannabis, what? We're feds. We don't even know what that is. So initiatives like that I promote as well. Not single-minded. I'm just trying to be really clear that we aren't continuing to have to do this fight for 10 or 15 years. I don't want people going to jail saying, hey, this is that bill you worked on, and now I'm still a felon going to jail. So I'm really left with only a few options here. And the Jack Herer initiative is just so good. And if you can pass it here in California, it creates a new spectrum of what legalization looks like. I think most of the states right now are looking at Washington and Colorado and going back and forth between those two as there's models or prototypes. And they both have intrinsic problems in them. If we create something that's perhaps even more liberal, and I think people kind of expect that from California, it broadens the spectrum for everybody down the road, and it can be other countries saying, well, we can actually free the prisoners while we do this. We can actually limit the taxes and say, set it up to where the people of the state or that country have access to what we call the new $1 trillion crop. In 1938, it was called the new $1 billion crop, and made history at that moment. To recognize it today for what it is, it's truly the $1 trillion crop, but we'll just hand it away to corporations. We just say, hey, it's legal, but you have to pay $250,000 to be in the ganja business. It's going to be, always in the hands of the elite, and the trickle down will be, marginal. So to really empower people, I always go back to this formula in this country. First laws in the United States concerning cannabis were you had to grow it. You could not move to this land, grab a chunk of land, and not grow cannabis on it. If we go back to that mentality a little bit more than the last 80 years of this drug war, I think we'll have a better century ahead of us. I think we're going to actually overcome so many of the environmental and ecological problems that are haunting us right now by really empowering ourselves back with God's greatest gift, the cannabis plant.
So one of the things too that I wanted to bring up with the initiative is it's legalizing the plant all the way across the board, right? I mean it's recreationally, medicinally, and for industrial hemp.
Personally, for religious uses, all personal use is covered. It's got a very clear, just the first couple paragraphs you get into it, you start reading, it's like legal poetry. Because to make something simple and yet very defining is very hard. And I've seen these other initiatives that are 20, 25, 30 pages, and you're trying to cover all the details, and it just creates far more problems than needed. One of the beauties about Prop 215 is there's a one-page initiative. It's very simple, very broad, and every time it goes to an appellate court, the patients win. We've won just about every case that's come up in the last 15 years. Once it gets behind sometimes local courts, because the judges are forced to just go back to the original law and say, what's the intent of the law? Even if it's not specifically in there, and they go back and reread the law and say, well, what's the general feel here in contrast to how we should judge this issue? So 215 was written so liberally, as is Jack Herer's initiative, so liberally towards the cannabis consumer, that judges down the road will be forced to lean that way when they look at it. Whereas when you start putting in very specifics about how this thing is going to be controlled, the marketplace is going to change and evolve in its own way. So to predefine that too much is, again, to kind of cut into the market system and allow natural flow to not happen. So by leaving it very broad, very open, just a framework. And Jack Herer created a very kind of libertarian-leaning framework for us to work under. And you can't ask for much more than that. It limits taxes at 10%.
Patrick,
So
I'm going to have to
Colorado,
just interrupt for 1 second here. I'm sorry. We'll come right back and finish. We'll talk more about the initiative in just a moment, but we do have to take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Of course.
All right, we're on break.
Okay. So this segment, I'll play his Hypnovations MP3.
Yeah, you're good.
Sasha,
Yeah, cool.
and I'll just introduce it. Like I'll talk a little bit more here, and then I'll lead into him talking about that, and then we'll play it.
Okay, great.
Okay. And then Patrick, we're gonna be done by 1. So, and again, thank you for coming on. Because you mentioned maybe you could only stay for the first hour, but I just want to also invite you, if you do want to stay longer, you're more than welcome to stay.
All right, yeah, no, so far so good. I think I have a little bit more time. I might not make it till 2, but I'll definitely stick with you guys for a while.
Okay, all right, good. We're gonna have another man join us named Jason America. And he is pretty cool. He's really involved with marijuana and supporter of it, and he's an artist and does music and comedy and stuff. So Sasha, he's probably not going to be on it. He's not coming on until 1. But, yeah. Yeah, there's going to be times. The reason why is, I've always kind of thought that, there might be some guests that don't want to stay for the whole 2 hours because it is so late. And so I've always thought about, having maybe people that have been on before that I thought, gelled really well, and to bring them back as kind of like semi-regulars to sit in on the show at some points. Anyway, that was my thought about it. Yeah. And also, I want to get that story of, Richard Eastman giving out the weed during the Million Mass March, too.
Yeah, no, those are tough. That was good.
Yeah.
Funny to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, March got weed. We got SWAT team beating on people and stuff. There was 5 cops every. We had probably the lowest turnout for an actual protest I've ever seen in Portland. I mean, there was maybe 100 of us at most, and there was probably thousands of police. I just couldn't. They were everywhere. They were following us on horses, on bicycles, and horses and cars and ice cream trucks with loudspeakers screaming at us not to cross the street. Yeah, it was. I was like, there was at least, I'd say 3 to 4 cops for every 1 protester. Easy.
Was it like that in Patrick in California?
No, quite the opposite. We were set up at City Hall, right there on the front lawn, right there on the sovereign land of Houston Freedom, and a few cops were standing off in the distance, and then the march came through, and several hundred masked marchers showed up. And like I say, once they saw that we were set up and we were giving them cannabis, we had food, and we were doing all this stuff, a lot of them stayed, and 2 more officers came over while we were doing the giveaway, and we kind of steered him away from Richard for a few minutes until he was done handing away. 10 feet away. We took these 2 officers, we just kept walking backwards while we were talking to him, so they kind of followed us away from Richard, because Richard was standing with a giant box full of bags of weed, and he had stapled a little bag of hemp seeds to it, a little Nativo bag of hemp seeds, so this little package he was giving out. So they were walking up to see what he was doing, and we started chatting with them and lured them away, and by the time they turned back over their shoulders to see what was really going on, oh yeah, we're going to talk to this guy, she's all done. Literally, we had a line of people, just like that 2 years ago, a line of people going all the way out the park and around the corner, just waiting patiently in line to get the medicine. I've never seen anything quite like it before, much less to have it all happen again.
Yeah, that's cool. See, that was kind of what I was hoping to find, but I was met with resistance.
Yeah, I mean, like in the video, you can hear the helicopters going in the background with Kevin. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I had never seen anything like it. I'd never seen them they literally took a ice cream truck and converted it. And they had these giant speakers on the top of it. And they were riding around, following us, screaming orders at us. And then when they rode by, you could see in the ice cream truck and in the back of the ice cream truck, it was all SWAT. all SWAT. They were decked out in riot gear. I watched the county vans come in one by one, and I know that's what they use for transport when they arrest people. And I was like, and then I saw the helicopter show up, and to me, it just seemed like it was the perfect setup for something. It's like, if something bad was going to happen, it was about to happen. It seemed like everybody seemed to already know about it, unless they were the ones that were about to do it. And they tried to bait us.
Okay, and we're yeah. Welcome back to Hollywood Hemptress Hour on Time for Hemp, and we are on iHeartRadio. In studio, I have Patrick Moore. He's been, if you've just tuned in, he's been informing us about the cannabis, California Cannabis Hemp Initiative, which is going to be on the ballot. We're hoping for it to be on the ballot for 2014, and also my co-host Kevin Korn from Hardcore Entertainment. And you were actually, Patrick, before I interrupted you, kind of giving us a little bit more information on the initiative. Do you feel that you can pick it up from there?
Yeah, no, it's well, since I believe it's worth reading. It's 2 pages, very concise, and like I say, we'd like to see it be the model for future legalization worldwide. So it's at the California Cannabis Hemp Initiative 2014, or CCHI2014.org. The entire initiative there. A lot of the media that's been writing about it, we've been posting articles that have been coming out, so it's a good places in California to find the initiative or get in touch with vocalizers. It's all on the website. So CCHI2014.org is your home for the future of cannabis. And we have 3.5 months left. We're about a month and a half into the campaign. We have to collect, 700,000 signatures or thereabouts, and then get it in front of the voters. We're just trying to get it in front of the voters, and the California voters decide if this is what they want. And I'm wildly, I completely believe that the majority of people in the state are ready for progressive legalization.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I do too. And
yeah, we got Sanjay Gupta on our side now.
yeah.
I saw that coming, right?
Yeah. So yeah, everything sounds. I feel that this is the year coming up to that it's going to happen. How's the money behind it right now? Are you guys needing to do any type of fundraising?
We do have several events planned, and we're working on several more. And really, we kind of have a model set up from Jack Hare and Dennis Brone working on Prop 215. Jack was very, very dedicated to the People's Initiative process, to collecting the signatures, grassroots organizing, and yet even they only came up with about 100,000 signatures in 1995, Prop 215. And then George Zimmer, the man who has the Art Fund Southern California, you probably know him. He owns a soup warehouse. Does late night commercials. He's the guy who's got a soup for you. And he doesn't even smoke. I mean, he came so far out of left field, nobody even saw him coming. But his brother, I guess, had used cannabis a few years earlier during a cancer treatment, and he saw it worked for him. So he just walked in and met with Jack and the crew and wrote a big check.
What?
And bought the rest of the signatures. So that's really what we're looking for now as well. We've talked to several people, we've talked to a lot of people in the music industry and the film industry. We're hoping, and really at this point, it just takes 1 or 2 to step forward and make a bold donation, and we're done. I think ironically, the big payoff when working on the Jack Hare initiative is because he did so much work in the last 25 years in California, teaching people about the initiative process and teaching how to write these initiatives, that the people in the initiatives, the professional signature gatherers, are working for us for right now 25 cents a signature. And it may go up to 50 cents a signature in the next month or two, but that still puts us at an initiative getting on the ballot for less than $500,000. Right now, we could do it for $200,000. Mainstream media keeps reporting it takes $8 or $10 million to get any of the initiatives passed. And it's generally true for most initiatives. You have to pay $6, $7, $8 per signature. But because it's a Jack Hare initiative, we get it at just a rock bottom price, which is a great, again, one of the points that keeps me moving forward is we have the best initiative ever, and it's at 1/15th, 1/20th the price of other initiatives, or really any other initiative. And that makes it, for me, I can get my head around that. I can see, you know, there are cars, and people have cars in LA that cost more than $200,000. People throw parties in Los Angeles that cost more than $200,000. Somebody's going to solidify their place in history, for $200,000. So I think there's an entertainer, maybe a producer, maybe someone who doesn't know by name, but somebody who's through the last 20 or 30 years has managed to raise, you know, somebody who's made hundreds of millions of dollars or millions of dollars off of cannabis culture. You know, I think about Seth Rogen, I think about these people in Snoop Dogg, I think about people who've actually ridden the reign long enough, new Jack Harris. And we're hoping they'll step in somewhere along the way, as George Zimmer did for 215, and make this a possibility. Because there hasn't been a people-run initiative since 1974 that did it just volunteers. We almost have come to the, you know, it's been hard for me to grasp the idea that it can't be done with just volunteers. So this year I'm spending much more time focusing on fundraising.
Wonderful. You know, Patrick, you have so much knowledge about the hemp plant, and you know, just also alternative healing like colloidal silver water, and which you know I'd like to get into in a moment. But you started a series. You've done 2 episodes of it, and you know. And I hope you do more, because I looked at them and I really like them. And we're going to play one of the MP3s here in a moment for it. But it was called Hempnovations. Tell me about that. Like, is it just like a little mini series, like 3-minute shows of information?
Yeah, thank you. No, we got started with that with hemp.com last year. I was looking for sponsorship to make a presentation at the Health Freedom Expo. George Noy from Coast to Coast helps host the Health Freedom Expo in Chicago and Long Beach every year. And I've noticed over years of going there that there's a severe lack of cannabis research going on there. No one was really speaking about cannabis, even though we're all part of the same movement. So I finally fulfilled my dream in 2012 and made the first cannabis, I called it Cannabis Medicine, Cannabis Culture, Past, Present, and Future. There's an hour-long breakdown of how I think, you know, the cannabis culture evolves through medicine to affect the overall culture. They appreciated what I did. They liked what they sponsored the table, helped us get it set up there. So they then were doing a series of shows. One of them was a cooking show. One of them was, and they wanted to show an industrial hemp. So I did a series called Hempovations, Innovations in Hemp. And we hope to continue on with those. I've done a series of pilots over the years here in LA. It's kind of what you do here in LA. So there's a series of pilots trying to get this information out and always make it more accessible. And worked with Melissa Nolan a little bit on her film, Jack Harris film that they were working on. And there's it's a golden time. Some of the tax money raised via the Jack Harris Initiative is specifically set aside for research and education. So we've been lying about this plant, government-funded lies about a plant for 80 years, that there's so many misconceptions, there's such a culture of fear about it, that we know it's going to take the same kind of budgeting. We'll actually have to budget money to educate grandma out there that this plant isn't intrinsically evil. Quite the contrary, it's intrinsically, it's just been recognized by religions all over the world as being very special. It offers us the greening of the planet. The entire environmental movement is kind of shown its true nature in some ways by not making the cannabis plant the center of it. I've always been surprised how many environmentalists are very happy to smoke, and they smoke, but they've never made that connection that the real-life solution to all these problems, we can protest against nuclear power, we can protest against petroleum, but if you don't have something to offer to replace it, you're not going to win anybody over. Nobody's going to just give up their cars. Nobody's going to give up the layer of electricity we've come to expect today willingly. So there has to be that crossover, and when you really come to understand that there are only a few options we have that can fill that void big enough for the world's electricity needs today, but hemp is one of them. There are some algae, there are types of funguses, there are a couple other natural resources we can rely on as well, and I think it'll be a synergy of funguses, algae, and hemp that actually can produce a petroleum replacement. And we could shut down all the nuclear power plants. And we wouldn't have to cut down one more tree in the world. And fulfill, and live exactly like we are. Except everything will be clean. I got a Mercedes-Benz I run on hemp oil. I've been doing that for about 5 years. And I can sit in my garage all weekend with my car running, and I'm not going to die. So not only does it feel right, and it's good, and it's cool, and it's hip, but it's also safe. I also literally, like, people go in their cars and sit in the garage to kill themselves. I couldn't do that because I'm running my car on hemp oil. You can't kill yourself that way. So it doesn't even produce the same toxin. So, and I think it's what we're meant to be. I think it's taken a tremendous amount of work to get us away from what would have been our natural art through the entire 20th century, relying on natural resources for industry. And we've got the Rothschilds and these families that specifically chose to run with petroleum instead. And the more I do my history, the more I realize nobody thought that was a good idea 100 years ago. And then Rudolf Diesel said he would die before he allowed a drop of putrid sludge to be put into his car, meaning petroleum. He was running a diesel engine, and his entire life, he never put petroleum in his engine. He ran it on peanut oil. Then he ran it on hemp oil. Then they killed him. And I think they probably blackmailed his family, intimidated his family into starting to allow petroleum to be run into his engine after he was dead. And 100 years later, we call it diesel fuel. The man who stood most poetically and adamantly against petroleum in the planet now has a petroleum product named after him. We call it diesel fuel. And these are the great horrors of our last century I'm trying to correct. I think if we could actually deal with our history, recognize what happened, and then move back forward and say, all right, instead of 1,000 oil barons, we could let 100 million farmers fuel the next 100 years of industry.
Patrick, I'm going to have to interrupt one more time. I just love what you're saying, but we got to go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
All right.
Wow, that was great, Patrick.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. That was great.
My pleasure. Yeah, no, I
One for that hempovation.
Yeah. You know what though? I'll still introduce it though. There was such a flow of conversation that I just kind of let it go that way. So is it okay if we just do it after this?
Okay.
Okay. I mean, like I'll bring him back. We'll like talk a little bit more about this, and then we'll like I'm gonna have him set up the video. The one that we're gonna look at. So, and then I'll say, hey, I might even say, hey, Sasha.
All right.
Yeah.
Is the second episode the one you're talking about? Is it that one that starts out about textiles?
Yes.
All right, good. Yeah, no, Glass Slipper Studios, they shut it down, but that's where we shot it, up in the valley.
Wow. That's too bad.
Remember?
Did you do it on a green screen?
Yeah, that's quite cool.
Did you do it on a green screen?
Yeah. And it was all very professional. Hemp Inc., put up a professional Hollywood-style budget and had all the boom mics, and the guy, the director of it, worked on the original Star Wars movie prep. I was just bummed because we were doing it like 9 in the morning, so for me to get to the valley at 9 in the morning, I was up at 7, that's a little out of my normal flow, so I wasn't feeling 100% on my point there. By noon or later in the afternoon, by evening, I was much more ready to do that show. But we shot it in the morning, but yeah, no, it's a fun little one.
You can't tell. I mean, I think you can't tell that you feel tired or, yeah. It's good. I mean, I like it. I would have never thought that, but it's funny to hear the backstory of all of us, we're like, well, this was happening. And, but a lot of times I feel we probably come off a lot better than we think we do, but,
we're our own worst critics.
Right. It's too bad. There's someone up here that I was working with doing a web series, and we were shooting in front of a green screen eventually, and everything he set up in his garage, and I'm talking about Kevin actually did one of our first shows, but but Kevin, it actually grew to where Michael got really pretty good at putting an imposed background, and like he invested in a virtual set, and I mean, it started to look like it was pretty amazing. It was all done with like computers and just a green screen.
Right.
Yeah. So
That's a fun technique.
I'd like to be able to get something like that going.
It's not hard, and in all honesty, you don't have to buy all that stuff. Really, it's green sheet. For real. It's just basically a solid, the solid in the background for the program to decipher.
Yeah.
And then you can do it. I mean, editing software will do it. I mean, Scott, you seen his little like videos and stuff he makes?
Uh-huh.
where he's like at a podium with like the presidential seal, like he's like giving a presidential. That's all green screened. That was done with a green sheet on a wall.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So it can be done, but I think it's a really cool, fun technique too. I just don't have the.
I just don't know how to do it on the computer. I'd like to learn how to do it, like how to and put the backgrounds in and stuff like that. I need to learn that. Maybe I need to learn that.
Hey, YouTube it. I'm sure there's a tutorial.
I bet there is.
Yeah, there's a tutorial for anything you want to know on YouTube.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of edX, real quick?
No.
.com. It's Stanford and Harvard and MIT and Rice University. They've all offered courses for free where they actually certify you totally free, and you do it online, but you can get certified in some very specific things like types of electronics and some general things. Like Harvard's got one on justice. Some justice I was going to take. Take next year. It's very, academia is kind of catching up to the 21st century. Like, wow.
Oh, it was very cool. Actually, I looked into that. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I looked into it. And the only weird part that I thought is you have to have already gone to college. You already have to have most of your required credits for college out of the way. So they only basically give you your, your elective credits. But they do it for free, and you can get them from just about any of the real major universities.
Right, yeah, and you can sign up to take it as you can kind of just take it as a sit-in, and you don't have to take tests, and just, follow the course line with everybody else, or you can take it over grades, take it and actually test it.
Yeah, that was cool. I think that's just a great idea. They basically wanted, it's like, everybody to have the same opportunity and education, and I think that's just awesome.
I think that's what we all thought technology was going to bring us. It was all going to enable us to get much more connected and take the exclusive, take the elite shit off.
We're coming back.
Stuff.
Hello, welcome back to Hollywood Hemptress Hour on the Time for Hemp Network. In studio, I have Patrick Moore with me. He's a cannabis activist and also a host of many different shows that he's done, and Kevin Korn from Hardcore Entertainment. So we were talking about the Hempnovations series that you started, and I really hope that you find a place and start to restart them again. We do have an MP3 that we are going to play. Could you give us a little bit of a setup on what this is, what the series really kind of entails? Well, you're kind of telling us now anyways, but what is this particular video that we're going to look at?
Sure, I think this might have been the second episode, and I started to focus on textiles. I was kind of covering, some of each episode, one of the major aspects of what hemp is used, and bled over a little bit between them. But I really wanted to emphasize the thing that we're most commonly seeing, most people are familiar with, has been, maybe has even worn, some hemp textiles. So I wanted to bring that home and really emphasize it and show how big that is. So what a big potential that one little thing is. Because I like to talk about fuel and the food and the trillion-dollar industry that this is about to step into. And yet textiles is one of those as well. And it's, again, it's the thing that people can touch and feel and have the most knowledge of.
Great. So, Sasha, can we go ahead and play that?
Greetings and welcome back to Hempnovations, your source for what's new and what's real in the wide world of hemp. Today we're going to look at what's probably the single best known and commonly seen use of industrial hemp. It's fiber. The first known hemp fabric dates around 7000 BC when it was found in China, where it's also called mu, which means mother, and it shows the endearing place it held for them culturally. The oldest mummified body in Europe was found as a princess in Germany, and she was clutching hemp seeds in her hand. Hemp has been grown and utilized by many cultures worldwide, often comprising the vast majority of all textiles like clothing, bedding, and drapes,
Most rope and cord, virtually all sails, almost all paper, even building materials were made of hemp, like hemp fiberboards and cement and building blocks and hempcrete. It was noted recently that the famous ancient Roman roads were heavily laden with hemp, giving them the strength and durability they show to this day. From the 1700s to the early 1900s, America's primary hemp crops were grown for its bast and core fiber, the seed being made into meal for food and oils and paints and varnishes. The earliest laws in America required that hemp be grown. Imagine that. Now, George Washington was fond of saying, take the hemp seed and sow it everywhere. I second that intention, and that's why we here at Hemp Inc. work so hard to support progressive hemp legalization efforts worldwide. But in America, we deserve American-grown hemp to support a sustainable industry in agriculture, as 30 other nations in the world enjoy today. Of course, as your host, here at Hemp Ovations, everything I wear is hemp from head to toe, even the socks and the boxers. Every major tennis shoe maker in the world has put out a series of hemp kicks. I have a pair of hemp Etnies, Nikes, Adidas, and a pair of hemp Earth shoes. Now, Giorgio Armani has been producing many of his pieces in hemp over the last 10 years. With modern technologies being developed in Europe and Asia to harvest, wet, and process hemp 21st century style, they are now building cars and houses out of hemp beyond modern standards around the world. The old adage is proven to be true. There's nothing we can't do with hemp. It can provide all the necessities of modern life, 100% replacing petroleum, trees, cotton, even nuclear resources that we so seem to need today, but come with such heavy side effects and secondary costs. Now, hemp can save the planet by supplying over 50,000 modern products in a cycle of life so diametrically opposed to the petroleum cycle that we may find ourselves quickly evolving into a clean, flourishing world of plenty on the backside of our new trillion-dollar crop, hemp. I'm Patrick Moore. Stay tuned for more Hemp Ovations at hemp.com.
Awesome. That was great. That was Patrick Moore. Yeah, thank you. I called it a video, like we're gonna watch this video, but we didn't watch it. It was still an MP3, so I just want to correct myself on that. But the video is really good to watch, and if you don't know what Patrick looks like, he's got his hair's kind of slicked back, and you can tell he has a little ponytail, and he's wearing a suit, and I'm just kind of describing what he looks like. And you go by Dr. Mesmer. Do you sometimes still call yourself Dr. Mesmer?
I do. It's a persona I picked up when I was working in Santa Cruz after doing 8 years of relief work in the Western Highlands of Guatemala. I guess I should take 2 steps back here. As you mentioned earlier, in 1991, I met Dr. Buck Beck the same year I met Jack Hare. Jack Hare was, as I was deciding if I was going to go to school or what schools I was going to go to, and Jack Hare started telling me about the trillion-dollar crop and his favorite world of hemp. Dr. Beck started teaching me about the $4 AIDS cure. And both of them, I thought they were crazy old guys until I found out that, everything they said had some backing to it. And the more I found out about it, the more true it seemed. And they kept emphasizing that if I went to college and I spent $100,000 and went and got a degree, they wouldn't tell me this. They would tell me the opposite of this. They would tell me that these things weren't true. The further I went into mainstream education, the further away I get from this type of information. So that was a turning point in my life. I really turned away from the mainstream academia and really started self-teaching myself field steps seemed relevant to me. Bioelectric medicine became what evolved out of Dr. Beck's research, and it goes back to Raymond Royal Rife, it goes back to Tesla. I really consider it being Western medicine, and it just had to compete with allopathy, which is Rockefeller medicine, and they're all petroleum-based or radiation-based, and it lost out due to back dealings and Senate and double dealings all the way along. And on the backside of the hemp movement and the backside of getting cannabis legal, we don't actually stop there because there's so many things like ozone, like colloidal silver, like nutrition in general that we lost out on. We've tried to replace everything we knew about healthcare with pharmaceutical drugs and electroshock therapy, and some fringe therapies they sort of deal with. And I think that's been the greatest crime to humanity in the last 100 years. There's been, the war's been terrible, many things have been wrong, but the actual amount of suffering created by the misuse of medicine, I think, has affected more people on a more dramatic way than any other issue I can name. So I've really tried to keep close to the idea. And then going back to Francis Mesmer in the 1700s, he foresaw this. He didn't have batteries or electrical cords, but he knew. He called it animal magnetism and developed a style of medicine trying to enhance that. Today we have Radio Shacks with a 9-volt battery that can produce modularized frequencies that kill viruses and funguses and bacteria in the body with no residue, with no side effects. And so I did 8 years in the Western Highlands of Guatemala, working with the Mayan communities there and finding that I could just produce a tremendous amount of medicine just by myself with a small group down there. And that kept me busy for 8 years. But I taught them how to make the medicine. I left the machines down with them. At the same time, I was setting up hemp textiles. So I was teaching them how to use bringing out hemp textiles. And they're one of the most beautiful textile cultures. The weavings are just incredible. The rapulae, the museums around the world, the blouses they make. So I started getting them to make those in hemp. And they could sell them for a lot more, and they got connected to the natural aspects of hemp. At that time I left the Western Highlands of Guatemala, they had their own Ploto silver machines and ozone machines, and had their own resources for finding hemp. And I got as many of them hooked on spirulina as I could. Tuberine algae did those wonders for health. So kind of wrapped up that project and settled in Santa Cruz, and then Valerie Corral, the Lamb Club. She was in the same, on the same vein I was as far as offering healthcare just by donations, never allowing money to become part of the healthcare system. So she runs a club up there where she's treating 500 of the most sick people in the Bay Area, all by donation. And so I've been doing that at Guatemala, and she really helped me solidify that was a proper philosophical stance to take. And I named my clinic in Santa Cruz the Santa Cruz Center of Modern Mesmerism. That's even a little fringy for Santa Cruz, but I've stuck with my principles of paying homage to Franz Mesmer, and I think this field will evolve over the next few decades into becoming one of the staples of Western medicine, and not something that's just fringe as it is today.
Yes, I do believe that we are going to, we're revolutionizing. I don't know if that's the right word I want to use for that. I've lost a lot of faith in our healthcare system. I don't think we're curing people. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go even to say I'm going to be sinister right now and say that it feels like it's intended for us to not be well. And I feel that we're going to realize that Western medicine has become quite greedy, and it's very much off the mark, and that people are able to heal themselves naturally with medicine like cannabis or colloidal silver, or just a lot of different herbs and plants that have been around us forever. Maybe even energy work, meditation, spiritual work. I mean, who knows how the body is connected to how it really works, and it might be a lot easier for us to have. I even say perfect health, or to be able to heal ourselves. I mean, Kevin's like, he glued his fingers back on with super glue, and they're on his hands still. So,
yeah, true story. No, I watched my uncle do it when I was younger. He was literally filleting a fish, and he cut his hand. And when he cut his hand, I watched. He cut his hand like this would be like normal people would go get stitches for this. He just walked in the kitchen, cleaned off, reached into the utility drawer, pulled out super glue, and super glued it. And I thought he was nuts, right? And then a week later, he came over, and it was completely different. Completely different. It was
Right.
He had no scar, no nothing. It was healed. It was completely perfect. So I saw that. So when I had cut off my fingers, I had decided I was just going to super glue them back on, not expecting much. But over time, yeah, they healed themselves. I have full movement, and I can still feel at the end of my fingertips. Now, doctors tell me that shouldn't be possible, but I'm telling you, it is, because it happened. And I have proof. I mean, I have the X-rays. I mean, I did. They wanted to see my fingers after I super glued them. They wanted to study them.
That's beautiful. Very good.
Yeah.
Very inspirational. Yeah. No, I know that was used heavily in the First World War and in the Second World War. They used the super glue as first aid medical medicine.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, literally. I mean, it works better than stitches, and it's like an antiseptic. It can't get that. Your skin naturally pushes it out, as it heals. So it's all natural. So it's pretty much natural. It doesn't leave much of a scar. there's no scar tissue with it. So it's just really weird, you know. And I don't know, it works for me.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know there's an herb from South America. It's called dragon's blood. It works much the same way. It's considered kind of a liquid band-aid. It's dark-colored, kind of resinous, reddish sort of goo. You put it on the wound, same thing. I watched it heal up holes and all sorts of crazy things, and absolutely. And that's the cornucopia we have to choose from. I got thousands of different herbs, hundreds of different traditions. And in modern times, we've chosen to ignore them all for something that's very high-tech and seemed very... at points seem very impressive along the way, but we're finding has a lot of shortcomings, and in many ways it's just plain dangerous. So yeah, we need to get back to some roots cultures and some of these traditions that do deserve honor and respect for having lasted for thousands of years on this planet. And we can definitely weave together a better health system than we have today.
Well, you know, I was reading, you know, it's funny you were mentioning, you know, about being sick, because, you know, Terry had turned me on to an article where it was actually talking about if it comes true, you know, if they finally admit to, you know, like all of these things that they've been telling us are bad for us, you know, and don't use their stuff instead, and finding out that they knew this stuff was good for us the whole entire time, then technically it's one of the, they call it a genocide. They call it an attempted genocide.
Yeah, I mean, what Kevin's referencing to is that WikiLeaks came out that the American Medical Association has known that cannabis cures cancer since the 70s, and that it's the biggest genocide ever committed on humanity. And you know, I mean, I saw that was posted in the Global Illumination Council, the GIC.org, is where I read that for the first time. So, you know, I mean,
But they knew Latrobe did it in the 50s, and they knew ozone did it in the 1930s. I mean, they've been working cures for cancer steadily, and it's been campaign after campaign to get those shut down, get them arrested, get them murdered, blacklist them, give them a bad name, and they've done campaign after campaign, therapist after therapist, for 100 years now, really demonizing anybody who got in their way. And again, I think really in so many different movements that seem so radical today, we're just asking for a fair playing field. We're just asking, you know, well, sure, we'd like to prosecute the criminals behind the petroleum empire and this thing with the nuclear power. It's proven itself to be a nightmare, and I think we're finally starting to wake up to that. But it's not even so much an attack on them as it is to say, hey, give us a fair playing field and let the people decide. If they're such adamant supporters of a free marketplace, let the free marketplace actually run. And if cannabis doesn't work, it won't last very long, right? But despite 100 years of prosecution and persecution and lies, it is still so popular on the planet today. I think that speaks volumes. I think that really almost says it all.
You know, we do have to take a commercial break. We'll be right back with more Patrick Moore and Kevin Korn on the Time for Hemp Network. And we're going to bring someone back. We'll let you know after the break.
Jason should be here.
Hey, Jason.
Hello.
We finally connected.
I have to keep remembering to go to the applications and open it, not just go to Skype.com. I just like I spent like an hour rearranging my room and like putting my computer back in it, all for like, you know, something that's not going to be on camera. But it looks great in here. I even showered. That doesn't happen much.
So I have my guest Patrick Moore, and we've been he's been working on the initiative that's happening, the Jack Hare initiative that's happening in California, that they're working to get on the ballot in 2014. And he has a show called he's you know done a lot of different media online for cannabis legalization. He's an occupier, you know, from Los Angeles, and so we were just right now talking about, you know, how cannabis is, you know, helping people heal, you know, and it's this all around universal plant, from textiles to food to everything, you know, just all the miraculous things that it is, and Patrick is really.
Does all this?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, and that's how it's just one part of a whole movement of things that were removed from us. How, as much as they tried to erase cannabis out of our history, they did the same with ozone and mineral therapies and most nutrition, and they just keep popping back up. But it's not because we just discovered it; it's because we, rediscovered it. And 100 years ago, we had a very progressive health system in America.
Right.
Taken in some ways, many ways, just steps backwards.
Plenty of steps backwards. It's more economical for our enemies to keep it that way.
Most definitely. I don't know. There's a reckoning to be coming down the road. I hold a lot of hope in Iceland. I've actually seen, what would happen if we actually just applied fair justice to everybody. And the bankers actually go to jail, and then they write off the debt for the fraud that they did. So
Bankers don't go to jail. We even took that space off the Monopoly board.
You guys, you know what? Let's save this for the show. I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to burn this. I mean, this is a good area to. I think we could play in right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Iceland is. They took the jail space off of Monopoly. So because bankers don't go to jail.
Right. And in Iceland, half a dozen bankers already in jail and more on their way.
That's awesome.
Iceland,
That's good for them.
Yeah. They had the shop in WikiLeaks went there and lectured for several years in 2007, 2008. And instead of ignoring them, they paid attention to them. And as they started prosecuting bankers, and they were only getting 4 or 5 years.
Jason, I have to ask you a question. Like what song do you like? What song do I want to replay your song again? What was it? It's the the pharmaceutical one.
Yes, the marriage of Prozac and Zoloft.
The marriage of Prozac and Zoloft. Okay, he says go.
Show me on the doll where they touched you.
That's funny.
Is that like a pickup line these days? Show me on the doll where they touched you.
I don't know where you've been hanging out, but
By myself.
Are we back, Sasha?
It's coming up right here.
Okay. Welcome back to Hollywood Hemptress Hour. I'm Terry Joyce, and we are on the Time for Hemp the Time for Hemp network, not the Time from Hemp. Sounds like a like a 1950s sci-fi. The Time for Hemp on iHeartRadio, and I love it how it's iHeartRadio because it's all about the heart. Anyway, in studio I have Kevin Korn, and we've got Patrick Moore. And we've got a new person that we're adding to the group. You're kind of like a Renaissance man. He's a Renaissance man. He's a pinball wizard. He is a musician and a videographer and and a funny and even a comedian. He even does like sketch comedy, and he plays mean guitar in a pink bunny suit, which is like always entertaining. I want to welcome back Jason America.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
It's good. It's great to have you.
That's the best introduction I've ever had in my life. I'm gonna make that my ringtone.
Oh, good. If you want to, I can edit that part out for you. Make a little YouTube video of it. Anyway, so we were talking about before you came here, and I kind of like briefed you in about how that I found on WikiLeaks a long time ago, and I've said this before on the show, that WikiLeaks came out with a report that the American Medical Association has known that cannabis cures cancer since the 1970s, and they're calling it the biggest genocide ever committed on humanity. And then we got into talking about how Patrick was explaining and then here's where I want to pick it up at, that there's been other methods of healing that have been known for many years, and that we are kind of like going back into our roots. And then we started talking about the corruption of our medical system just in general, and how it may have gone downhill, and who might be responsible for it. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that? Like, what do you think is maybe going on? How criminal is it, our healthcare system?
Well, I was listening before I came on, and I don't think there's much coincidence between. I think it was 1972 that Richard Nixon declared war on cancer, and that's when cancer skyrocketed. The numbers, we should Google it, I guess, but since then have just been astronomical. But and that's when you said that also they knew in the 70s that was the case. It seems like not only were they suppressing knowledge, but also they allow so many products and things that cause and create more cancer. In the 60s brought us, Dow and Monsanto's Beauty Agent Orange. And that is, currently they're trying to make an Agent Orange, I think, resistant GMO. Or no, they already have one. I read something recently. Agent Orange is making a comeback, and everybody loves it.
Oh yeah, it's in Roundup. It's the foundation of Roundup, which is what everyone uses in their home gardens now. After it lost the largest class action lawsuit in history for being used as a weapon, turn around and sell them in Kmart's today. Funny.
Yeah.
The walls of Roundup at Home Depot is just staggering. It's huge. They have so many pallets and pallets full of Roundup just as displays, and it all goes and it all gets refilled.
Yeah, half the pesticides in the country go into cotton. That's one of the things where you can really make a strong case that hemp for clothes is going to make a big difference. And the fact is just it cuts half the pesticide use in America.
I like how they used the new the Roundup commercials that they used for the last summer season had a very Western theme with good, bad, and the ugly whistling, and the whole theme of it being like shooting from the hip. You're shooting this Roundup like a man does. That's what a man does. He shoots things. He kills. And the commercials are so ridiculous. But the funniest part is that I have a neighbor. He's a really nice guy. I don't want to pick on the guy, but he's kind of a goon. A bit of a buffoon. Like a big lovable guy, but he sees the commercial and he's like, yeah, I wanna do that. But I literally saw him out with his little Roundup gun shooting everything in sight. But the funny thing was that he was like just like the guy in the commercial, like pew pew, Roundup, pew pew, yeah, man.
Oh, then you gotta get that guy like a Wagner paint gun.
And just to think they test marketed that. Somebody wrote it, and then they cast it. I mean, just think about like how marketed that is, and what does obviously. I mean, like what I mean, if they're on the shelves everywhere, then obviously people are buying it without really having any knowledge. I bet. I wonder what it would be like to go on the street and like take a survey of people to see if they know about Roundup.
That's interesting.
I know it's in your Roundup.
Right.
I put together a plan with a friend over the summer. And the reason I know so much about it, especially the commercial, because we talked about this exact thing. Because I wanted to make a documentary on the second and third generation effects of Agent Orange from Vietnam specifically. Because that's why I have my disabilities, was from deformities from Vietnam that my dad came back with. Big long story, blah. But I found an article from the Chicago Tribune where they had interviewed a handful of second, third generation children and grandchildren of veterans, and they all had very similar things, but the problem that I have is called a bilateral subluxation of the patellas, which means my kneecaps didn't develop appropriately and they sat crooked. and so my knees would blow out constantly. But it turns out that that's something that's common with children of Vietnam vets. But my dad actually had a tent behind enemy lines in Phu Bai, and he was a communications guy, kind of like radar. And his communication desk was in the same tent that they kept drums of Agent Orange.
Wow.
It's terrifying. And yet it's 40 years later. The sophistication of poisons being put forward right now, they haven't been through the court system, and they haven't all been exposed for being as horrible as they are. And we're dealing with things today that are, again, 40 years on from the type of poisons that were causing these problems during Vietnam. The horror stories coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan today about what's being done over there. The depleted uranium, just a crime against humanity like few others you could name in the world. It's really it's a system that's gone unchecked for just incredibly way too long. And I think we owe it to the next 7 generations to draw the line in our lifetime and say, no, we're not going to hand this off to the next generation. Because the nuclear problem doesn't go away. The mutating, the genetic engineering of our food crops, of fish into tomatoes. We don't know what that's going to cause in the next 100 years, but let's hope we don't have to find out.
Yeah.
Water world.
Yeah.
Water
Right.
world.
No, I mean, it could radically change, and again, we can only get deep into sci-fi and get a grasp on what it could look like, but I'd rather not. I'd rather, continue to evolve and grow in healthy ways than mutate ourselves off into some terrible mess.
Well, I've heard.
In our hands now.
Have you heard this? And again, like sometimes I watch a lot of like what you would consider to be alternative media that you could get on YouTube, but I've heard various speakers kind of confirm this, is that it may actually be designed, that the crops are actually designed to mutate maybe our DNA, or obviously we're looking at more sinister things. I was even listening to something about that the chemtrails might actually be nanoparticles or like a nanotechnology that is messing with our RFID receptors, I think it was, or something, where it was kind of like almost kind of rewiring us or people, and that if you'd given samples of your blood or your DNA to any type of things, that's been databased and stuff. I mean, just like sometimes like the theories behind like this, what might be going on, gets really trippy. I'm processing it. You look at vaccinations and a lot of things that are out there. And, I gotta say, part of me feels almost intuitively just stay away from there, just drink clean water, smoke weed, eat cannabis, eat hemp, get rid of chemicals, just be as, free of any of these substances. And the better you do, the more you do that, the better off you are. And I feel that if we take care of ourselves that way, then we have a greater chance to stay healthy and not be affected by these things. I mean, does anybody agree with me on that?
I agree, but it's hard to put into practice. Like, I actually went to the store today and had these beautiful mushrooms, product of Canada, and I filled up a bag, and then as I was going to look at the number, it was the 5-digit number starting with 9, which is GMO. And I was like, damn it. And I dumped them back out and, was thinking about it quite a bit. And I look at as much stuff as I can, but, then coming home and looking, even just my food that I have for emergencies and stuff is, stuff that I've read later. It's like, this has it's made with GMO products.
Me too.
So inundated that it's harder. It's so hard to try and weed that stuff out. But it gives you more reason. I think instead of some companies, waiting for the GMO